Alright, so this lesson is on creating a classic tween. Ironically enough, I'm going to start this off by showing you the current motion tween and compare it to the classic tween, which was the old way of doing things, but that is an option that is still available in Flash, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start off by creating the motion tween, and to do that I'm going to go ahead and rename this, and I'm going to call it motion tween green. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my green ball and just drag it in here. And to create the motion tween, you would just scoot on over to the timeline where you want, right click, insert a frame to extend the timeline. It's just stationary there. And then anywhere in the timeline I'm going to click, and I'm going to right click and create motion tween. And I've now activated it to let it know that I'm going to move it, and then I'm just going to go to wherever I want in the timeline to move it and put my handle there, and I'm just going to move it. Okay, and right now it'll create that tween. And if I stop anywhere in between, I can just move it and it'll automatically create that keyframe for me. Okay, now for classic tween, similar concept. You can do similarly the same things. It's a little bit more manual. Okay, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new layer, and this one I'm going to call classic tween red. And I'm going to go ahead and turn off my green motion tween just so that we can see what we're doing a little bit more clearly. Okay, I'm going to my first part of my timeline here. I'm going to go and grab the red ball, and I'm just going to throw it in here. Okay, and you'll notice that because of the timeline being already extended to this distance, it automatically fills itself in, and that's fine. Okay, I don't have to extend my timeline unless I want to. Alright, so at this point in time, I don't want to extend my timeline. I'm just going to use what I have here. What I need to do is I need to go to the end point, and I need to, one, insert a keyframe to designate that something special is going to happen, and then I need to show it what that is. So I'm going to go say to the end point here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to insert a keyframe. Alright? And that's basically to tell it that something special is going to happen. Now I need to show it what that special is, so at the end I want it to end up here. Right? Now, right now, it's just visible during this certain time, and then at that very last keyframe where I told it something different, it just jumps over there, and it's visible for one frame. Okay? Now, if I wanted to move and to do all the tweening in between, I need to go somewhere in between here. I need to right-click, and I need to create a classic tween. Now you'll notice there's this line, and it's kind of a purple coloring compared to this yellow, more blue color over here. All right? So now we're going to go ahead and go scroll it across, and you'll notice that it's moving and then it stops here. You'll also notice that this last keyframe is gray. Okay, so now here, even if I go to this end here and I do a right click and I do say insert frame, it's gray, it's stationary, it's just standing there and it's just visible for that amount of time, which is great if that's what I want. If I want to switch from a moving animation to then a stationary animation, this might be the best easy step way to go. Because in a motion tween, if you go down here and try to just extend this, even if I just insert a frame, or even insert a keyframe, doesn't matter, I'm just going to do insert a frame, it's going to extend all the way over here, okay? Now, here in the animation, on the particular layer for motion tween, if I go anywhere and just say here, for instance, and go in and, I'm going to turn this on so you can see it, and move this, okay, it just created another point. Notice it's going to do that, and then that. Okay, so it created that point for me. It created this extra one. If I go somewhere else in the timeline, like here, I'm going to turn off this red one really quick. Okay, so I'm here, and I go and move this. All right, it's going to do this. It's going to create that point for me, so you'll notice it appears. All right, so because this is a motion tween, it automatically creates these for you. Now, classic tween, it used to be that if I wanted something special to happen here at this point in time in the timeline, I used to have to right-click and manually insert a keyframe. But now what I've noticed happens is that I can actually, I'm going to turn on this layer, I can actually go here and move it, and it'll create that for me, which is a big jump from where you had to manually do it. All right. However, if I go here and I want to do something to it, say the classic tween on the red one here, and I do something to it, notice it doesn't create a motion tween and my endpoint here because it's all the same. All of this, anywhere where it's gray, it all applies to the same thing, okay? And that would be the same for any other object that you just have sitting stationary on the timeline. If you move it in one place in the timeline, okay, so like this red one here, that's where it will be at the very beginning, and that's where it'll be at the very end here, okay? So this is a comparative, okay? For me, the advantages of a classic tween is that it's really easy to switch from something that you want to be a moving animation to then stop, okay, and be just stationary. Whereas a motion tween, it just continues to assume that you want it to be moving. Now, if I just wanted this green tween here, I'm going to turn this one off, this green ball here to be stationary from here to here, I just basically don't tell it to move anywhere. Or I can create a motion tween here and just basically move it one step over, move it one step back. I just use my arrow keys for that. And now there's a stationary gap in between here. Okay? And then I could continue animating, insert frame to extend the timeline, and then I could continue animating here where then I move it. So you'll notice that it's moving, 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 moving. I set the gap where I just I use my arrows just to move it a little bit to trick it, basically to say don't move here. So then it stays there stationary, and then from this point on I told it to move again. Okay? So this is your lesson on classic tween. I felt I had to do it as a comparative to motion tween so you kind of see the differences and maybe possible advantages. Okay? So for me, classic tween is better for stop and go animation. Motion tween is better for things that are just continuous movement. This concludes your lesson on classic tween animation. If you have any questions, make sure to contact me.